All right. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Today we've got Adam Jones. He's a conservation specialist for the Missouri Farmers Association, and he's going to be talking a little bit about some unproductive acres and some options that people might have after they've kind of reviewed their yield map data and information for the year post-harvest. So go ahead and take it away, Adam.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Jake. So yeah, like you said, Adam Jones, conservation specialist for MFA Incorporated. If you're not familiar, we're kind of a member-owned ag retail all across the state of Missouri and some adjoining states. So we've got what we're looking at here today is obviously some yield data, and we're looking at kind of post-harvest or pre-planting, if you will, for 2023 crop year. Obviously it, I think, goes without saying, and before we really get into some of this, that moving acres, to and from production are fairly important decisions overall, and we certainly want to make sure that we're making the right ones. And but I think when you look at economics of scale, I mean, obviously that yield or that product or that that dollar that's going in our bank account doesn't necessarily come from the field overarching. It comes from very specific areas of the field. I think we all know and understand that as we look at our farm data across the system. But what you're looking at here is just some yield data from actually 2021 on a soybean field. And we can see where some of our overperforming areas are, and we can see where some of our underperforming areas are. And as a producer, you've got fields like this, I've got fields like this happens to be mine, and I can tell you exactly pretty much what's going on in every one of these spots that's somewhat underperforming. And so I think this is a good example of a field because we can see an area where we've got drainage issues kind of down here on the south end of the field. Those I hope that we can address through production means. And then we've also got areas that there's more of an issue going on than just a drainage area, right? So in the upper left corner, we've got some historic erosion going on there. Some things that I can stop it currently, but I can't stop the fact that I'm already farming on subsoil there. And so we're going to make a transition in that area. So I think it's a good example in the fact that every area has its own story, right? And what we're talking about here is managing things at the subfield level. The first step to get there, I really think, is economics in this situation. Listen, when we look at habitat transfer and acre transfer, I think we need to look hard at what we're doing or what we're going to. What benefits can we provide the landscape, the farm, the landowner from making those transitions? But a lot of times when we're looking at data and nice colorful maps, it comes down to dollars and cents here. So what I want to show is that you can get as detailed or as overarching as you possibly can on these. But essentially what we're trying to get to is a break-even yield per acre. And hopefully everybody's kind of familiar or has some spreadsheet that looks somewhat like this that they have on their computer at home to kind of figure out where we're making money, right? Where are we making money? Where are we breaking even? Where are we losing money? Those kind of decisions can be extremely important. And it's really important to drill down through every single expense that we have just to make sure that we're as accurate as we possibly can be in these decisions. So like I said, use your favorite tool, whatever, but the idea here is to essentially get to a break-even yield, and that way we can kind of generically look at our yield data and know what we're looking at. Another important thing to mention here is kind of trends. Don't make any rash decisions over 1 year's examples and whatnot. Most of these major things are going to tell their story over years and years and years. And here's that same field that I showed you earlier. You can see that I turned the elevation on, is all I did on the yield data here. So we added the z-axis, and we can see this hilltop or this portion of the hill up here in the corner that was historically included in this field. And I can tell you, after walking out there and knowing this farm, this is a family farm, knowing this place, like I said, we are farming on subsoil there. The goodie has been used up, if you will, out of that portion of the field. And so I'm actually going to use CSP and make a pollinator habitat installation on that 2/3 to an acre. I can't remember exactly how much it is on that corner up there, to where I can just sweep my end rows around the corner and don't have to turn around a whole bunch as well. So going to kind of use it to kill two birds with one stone there, and move that into some pollinator habitat. But yeah, point being is your fields, your underperformers, but on say a new farm, I would not use 1 year's worth of yield data to make any rash decisions. But some other good things is just stake the boundary. Something flexible is a good idea. If say you're a landowner, go out there and drive a bunch of steel posts, you're probably not going to make your farmer very happy when he slaps the boom of a $400,000 sprayer on it. So I like the big fiberglass flags and stuff like that, but we do want to stake that boundary so everybody kind of knows where it is. Same point for the adjust the field polygon thing is, think of every ag software platform that gets used across the space, whether it's John Deere Ops Center, whether it's Cirrus or MFA's Agronomy dashboard. Just making sure if you're having any custom work done, things like that, that boundary gets adjusted so everybody kind of knows what's going on in that situation. A lot of those boundaries carry over from year to year, so for example, if we've got a boundary in a spray machine, we get contracted to go spray somebody's field. Just make sure if there's a corner trim off or something like that, that gets communicated and everybody's boundaries get updated. So that's something important as we look at everybody's different systems. So also, seeding, like for example, a pollinator mix, I personally like to do it after a soybean crop in the rotation. So these decisions these underperforming areas don't happen overnight. So I think it's not unreasonable to necessarily wait for the next time that field is in soybeans to make that habitat transition. This is a good example of kind of some of the things that we see on some of our marginal field edges. This is nutrient, but essentially this is water competition. What you're seeing here, you're looking at a soybean field that I flew with a drone on a 92-degree August day, and you can pretty easily see the moisture competition with the tree line there. And so if this were my field, I would probably do some sort of edge feathering attempt on the edge here, at least drop these trees in place, spray the stumps. That's a fairly easy job for an afternoon, and then start to look at, it's like, well, have I positively impacted that field boundary enough, or do I need to add a buffer strip there as well? The one thing I will say in this photo is it looks like somebody's using this for UTV access to a field as well. So, hey, maybe we just need to make a permanent field boundary there, or a field border worth of habitat that somebody can have their UTV trail as well. So they're not running over my soybeans while they're on their way back to check their trail camera or whatever in this example. But really, I think this is one of those things where habitat and economics can really cross paths. I think a lot of farms have some very productive soil still in them, some very productive areas still in them, but almost every farm that we see, this may be an extreme example with the amount of edge that you're looking at here. But what I'll say is that almost every farm has a couple acres worth of something where we can have a positive impact for pollinators and also save ourselves some dollars and cents as well. I think this is also a good photo where I wanted to discuss kind of, I think something to think about here is kind of the the grower landlord interaction and how we want that to play out economically. There can be some things that make sense for us as a grower that may not make sense for the landlord, right? Especially if they're getting cash rent, like kind of an across the board cash rent payment. We've got to come up with a way to make up for that lost income. So I think having a good partner, maybe a good quail forever biologist or somebody like that understands all the program language and can get that landowner hooked up with some sort of program, whether it's CRP or whatever, that can offset some of that cash rent income, right? I think it's unreasonable to go to somebody and just say, hey, I'm just going to stop farming this acreage of yours and stop paying you for that acreage. So we've got to be able to manage those relationships and communicate all that fairly effectively. But overall, it's kind of complicated messaging, especially when we involve more than one party. And I think that's kind of what I alluded to there with the landowner grower relationship. Definitely relates to that farmland ownership and how are we having those conversations and communicating all those things. But at the end of the day, it's a losing battle, right? If I can farm that corner of that field for the next 25 years and no-till it and cover crop it and put all the inputs I can into that, and it's never going to be what it needs to be. And so I think just embracing reality in some of those situations and saying that, yep, this makes the most sense for this farm to transition some. Also knowing that all these acres take a little maintenance, right? So we've got to be prepared to do that, whether it's seeding, mowing, burning, all those kind of things. We don't necessarily, we just want to move that tree line further out into the field. So knowing those things and just kind of being comfortable with them, I think is important. But as we look at kind of the future of managing at that sub-acre scale, that's something that I think we're going to have to do to be the most economically efficient. So.
Yeah, that's great. And I think I really like those maps because it really shows where those opportunities are to, make a field more, squared off, easier to farm. And then also addressing where those areas you might have compaction. So it just makes sense. You got a road there anyways, or a trail,
For sure.
or those just unproductive acres to capitalize on a federal program, whether that is CSP like you're using, the Conservation Stewardship Program, or CRP, the Conservation Reserve Program, or even EQIP or something like that. There's a variety of federal programs and also state programs that can help. So if you guys take a look at your yield maps and you have questions, I'd say reach out to a resource like MFA or us at our Pollinator Habitat Help Desk. Adam mentioned Quail Forever, Pheasants Forever biologist. There's people to talk to about this kind of stuff and get you pointed in the right direction. So if you're taking a look at your yield data maps and you have some questions and want someone to bounce some ideas off of, you said it best. You're kind of whole farm solutions, kind of helping these landowners figure out what's best for their bottom line and ultimately what's good for habitat as well.
Yeah, that's absolutely right, Jake. I always say that Missouri, for sure, we are both blessed and cursed with a million different programs to do the exact same thing. And so having somebody in that wheelhouse that lives that every day can probably understand your goals and point you in the right direction real quick, a lot quicker than just kind of blindly walking into an NRCS office or something.
Absolutely. Yep. And we'd be happy to help you do that at the Pollinator Habitat Help Desk. Again, that's 337-422-4828. Or you can email us too at habitat@monarchjointventure.org, and we can set up something and get you a plan figured out.
Sounds good. Well, Jake, I appreciate the opportunity to talk about this today.
Yeah, really appreciate it, Adam. That's great content.